Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Father Ted Talks. Today, I wanted to talk about a subject that kind of has come up recently, and that is managing parishioners' expectations. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, in a parish, especially here in North America, most Orthodox priests are tasked with doing many, many different things. Here at Prophet Elias, for example, I am one priest for a very, very massive parish. Actually, Prophet Elias might be one of the largest parishes in Canada, with well over a couple of thousand people as part of the general membership. And so a lot of times, like, the priest is not only the spiritual leader of the congregation, but he's also asked to do many, many other things. He is responsible usually to coordinate all the other kind of programming of the church, whether it be the Fr.TEDTalks, which is the female philanthropic organization, whether it's the youth groups, the Sunday schools, the Greek schools, the dance groups, the parish council, fundraising, all these different things that are part of the working pieces of a large community. The priest usually is overseeing all these things here in North America, which is very, very different, for example, than most Orthodox priests in traditional Orthodox countries, for example, Greece or Russia or Serbia, where in these places the church is kind of embedded within the culture, and it is oftentimes state funded and state run, and kind of the church's job is to simply take care of only the religious aspects, and the priest only does kind of like his liturgical duties and his spiritual duties. But the priest in those countries is not responsible for all kind of like the cultural and administrative aspects of the parish. There are usually other programs that kind of take care of that in that society. But here in North America, because we're alone, because we live in a multicultural society where we really fend for ourselves and we have to do everything ourselves, the priest often has all these added responsibilities on his shoulders. So what does that mean when we're talking about managing expectations? Well, it means that for better or for worse, priests need to be very, very careful on the boundaries they set with the expectations of their parishioners. That, of course, a priest is always trying to make himself available as much as possible for people and their spiritual needs. But people also need to work with the priest and understand that, for example, just because I have the priest's email or I have the priest's cell number, that perhaps it's not always appropriate to be messaging the priest incessantly about, for example, not everyday things, but things that perhaps I don't need to bother the priest about. So, for example, if I'm messaging, my spiritual father at 10 o'clock at night to ask him when the liturgy starts the next day, that's probably something that I could find out myself by simply just clicking on the parish website and checking the online calendar. Or if my parish doesn't have an online calendar, making sure that I have a paper version of the services schedule for the month, or even calling one of my friends and asking them, so that I don't have to bother the priest especially in the evening, where he has perhaps his own family time, his own personal time, or when he's probably maybe catering to other families with, for example, hospital, visitations, emergencies, and other things that are actual emergencies, right? So a lot of times what people do is, especially in our kind of fast-paced modern culture, is that just like we're used to texting our friends at any given time of the day and the evening, we're used to sending out emails, WhatsApp messages, things like that, and we're also used to getting instant responses back because this is kind of the culture that we live in. We also tend to fall into this habit with the priest as well. So we'll message the priest as if he's he's a family member. Of course, the priest is like a family member. He's our spiritual father. But we'll message him like we're messaging a friend, and we'll expect a response right away, even if what we're asking is not an emergency. And if the priest does not respond, then sometimes people will follow up and they'll keep messaging until they get a response, or they don't know why they're not getting a response, etc., etc. So this is just one example of kind of this idea that people today in modern society don't kind of understand what boundaries are and don't understand what expectations or managing expectations is, right? So another example, for example, is that some people they want to confess all the time, like every week, or even like sometimes every few weeks, not understanding that, for example, there might be a parish of, let's say, 2,000 or 3,000 bodies, and all of these people have their spiritual needs, and the priest might not be able to accommodate hearing the confession of everybody, even on a weekly basis, or sometimes even on a monthly basis, because it's just too many people to accommodate. And so people sometimes don't understand that, and so they'll want to go to another priest or they want to go to another parish because they want that attention. So all these kind of things are human things. They're part of the life of the church. And this video is not so much to complain about, the pressures that people put on the priest, but rather it's more to emphasize the respect that we should have and the professional courtesy that we should have for priests. They are human beings as well. They have families. They need time to themselves as well to decompress, to relax, to rest. And so I always use the rule of thumb for my own spiritual father. I know my spiritual father has his own parish. He's very busy. I try not to bother him unless I absolutely have to. I don't want to text him or call him about mundane things that I can figure out on my own. I try to only contact my spiritual father when I actually have something of a necessity, where I actually need an answer that I cannot find anywhere else, where I need his guidance on something that I cannot, receive guidance from anyone else, right? And so I try to limit my reaching out to my spiritual father, because I know that he's overwhelmed with so many other people who are also doing the same thing, right? And this is just kind of like the professional courtesy that I extend to him, and the compassion that I have for him and his family and his personal time. So this is kind of like the thing that we need to remember in parishes, especially in big parishes, but even in smaller parishes where the priest is even more accessible. But sometimes that can also be a problem, because in the smaller parish, people might also take advantage of the priest and say, he's in a small parish, he doesn't have that many parishioners, I can monopolize more of his time. And that's not good either, right? There needs to be a balance in everybody's schedule and everybody's, work and life balance and home life balance. And even though priesthood is not work like anybody else, it's not a job like any other job. It is a service. It is a calling. You are on call 24/7, but we want to make sure that the priest has the capacity to be on call for those true emergencies. And when it's not an emergency, it can probably wait until the workday, the regular work hours, or we can probably give the priest a little bit of leeway to respond when he can, instead of expecting instant responses. As a rule of thumb, for me, when people message me in the evenings, like in the late hours, if it's an emergency, I respond to them immediately. Of course, somebody is hurt, somebody's in distress, somebody needs confession, or something's going on in a hospital, something like that. Of course, I will respond to them immediately. But for any other general inquiries that are not emergencies, I respond the next day when I come in the office. And the restraint of not responding immediately has to be there, because people need to understand that this is not the time to be expecting responses from the priest as if he doesn't have a life and he doesn't have other things to do with his family and his children, his wife, and things like that. So this is just, again, a gentle reminder to everybody that we have to manage expectations for our priests, right? They're carrying a lot of heavy load, whether it's a big parish or a small parish, and we try to accommodate that load by either helping the priest in the ministry, or also, refraining from, bringing things to the priest that don't need to be brought to him, when we could easily find the answers ourselves in other ways, in simple ways. And so that's basically what I want to say about this video. Manage expectations. Do not get upset if your priest is not able to respond immediately, especially when it's for everyday questions that could be found online or could be found from the parish council or from the office. And even when it's something that is kind of, that seems to be an emergency, or seems to be something that you really need to, have an answer to right away, if the priest is not answering, usually there's probably a good reason. Maybe he's in a hospital tending to another family that has an illness or an emergency. Maybe he's in a confession. Maybe he's doing something else that is not allowing him to respond. And so we should always be prayerful and patient and wait for the response at the appropriate time. That's all for now. Till next time, take care and God bless.